My name is Megan Alpert, and this is my book, The Animal at Your Side. It is a collection of poetry about trying to create a home for oneself when one has lost touch with family of origin and doesn't really have a home place to go back to. And it was written over the course of probably 10 or 12 years, and it won the Airlie Prize from Airlie Press. Yeah, so I wrote the first poem probably in 2004, maybe even earlier. And really, what drove me to write poems at that time and to write that particular poem was just having a really strong feeling and needing a place to put it. And because I couldn't talk about my life very easily with regular everyday speech, I created these poems and these stories to kind of explain my life to myself. And so, that first poem is the first poem that I wrote, is really the first poem in the book. And nobody really realizes this, but it's very much a persona poem that's meant to be kind of in the voice of Dawn from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, waiting for her sister to rise out of the grave and come home. And then probably the newest poem in the book was written in maybe 2014, and I would say there's a couple of those newer poems in the book, and those are about what it was like when I was working as a reporter in Ecuador, reporting on oil development in the Amazon rainforest and the violence that it had caused there. So a huge range of ages and life experiences went into this book. And what kind of unites everything is this search for home when there isn't that home place. So the structure helps with that too. It's structured by landscape rather than by some kind of narrative arc. Yes. I'm going to read a poem from the first section of the book called Unsettled. My friend and I went to the lake, found a skull, and took it home. Washed it, set it out to dry on the shed roof in the sun. Still, my mother saw it, shuddered. We buried it in the backyard, underneath the compost heap. Now my dinner tastes like bones. The backyard pile of rotted wood we'd pull apart to see the bugs. We turned a plank into a table. My friend came to and to the house. We made a stew of broken rocks. My parents would not eat the bones, or lick the bones, or love the bones. We knew that there had been a war, and after that there was a manor. Then it all became this town. Lenape, Wappinger, and butlers thundered through and through the woods. Sleepless, scared, we'd dig and listen. Shards of them the earth turned up. To us, we thought, to us. So I chose that poem because it sort of exemplifies a lot of the concerns of the book, of sort of that there's this disconnectedness to the land under the speaker's feet that is very haunting. And at the same time, she's witnessing an even stronger disconnectedness on the part of her parents. And I think feeling haunted and sort of drawn to something at the same time is the tension that a lot of the poems are holding. Yeah, I didn't count the number of places I submitted to, but it felt like a lot because I submitted over the course of probably 7 or 8 years. And the first year that I submitted, I was a finalist for the Saturnalia Prize. and an editor at a press wrote to me to say, basically, I almost chose your book. And so getting that early success, I thought, okay, this will be published maybe next year, maybe the year after. And I really did spend a lot of money submitting to contests. I think there was one year I submitted to 10. So if you do the math on that, at every contest between $25 and $30, that's at almost $300 spent. And that was just one year. So, as time went on, I started trying to submit to places that had lower fees or query editors at small presses and things like that. But it just, honestly, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I really hope that people don't give up on their books, because when I got the email from Airlie saying I had won the Airlie Prize, I was ready to give up, and there was no indication anywhere that was coming. It was like I had gotten some finalist nods. I had been a finalist for the National Poetry Series, and then nothing, for years. So it's tough out there for poetry books, but I just really encourage people to believe in their books and to stick with it and to find ways to keep sending things out. Yeah, this was something that I had strong feelings about. Because of the subject matter of the book, I really wanted to resist any kind of narrative arc that went from like leaving home, feeling lost, finding a solution, and then feeling fine again. I didn't want that, because that's not really the story of my life. Things are not linear in that way. Instead, it's a lot of like searching, finding maybe a resting place, or finding a point of feeling settled, and then having everything get upended again. And that's life, right? So the way I arranged the poems was actually I organized them by landscape. And so the first landscape of the book is really like the woods of suburban and upstate New York. And then it moves into kind of lake shores, bodies of water, and then into the interiors of houses, and then expands out to kind of like places far away from home. And then the last section is all in the dark in a bed. And it was sort of, I don't know why it felt really important to have that movement that kind of journeyed in and then out and then in, but it allowed the structure of the book to actually stay stable, even as I pulled out maybe a third of the poems and put in like a third of the book of new poems over time. I mean, because remember, I sent that book out for 7 or 8 years. I was revising it that whole time, but the structure always stayed stable.